This is the companion video for the G7 blues lesson that I sent out. I think it's called the Mega Blues lesson. So let's jump right into it. I sent you a lot of pages. I think there's 15 pages to this. And the main page I'm going to deal with here, you need to study it all and have these things out while we're going through this. But mainly I want you to look at the G7 blues study improv in parentheses, the main chart. 3-stave system. It's a 12-bar blues. The simplest way to start with the blues, well, first of all, let me show you these voicings. I didn't write the voicings down. Just a G7 to start out with. That's your G7. I sometimes play it this way. I use just the inner workings of the chord. So it's the 7th and the 3rd, and then the tonic on the bottom. And a lot of times when you're soloing over this, if you're looping it or somebody's playing it, you've got all the guts of the chord. It sounds exactly like it's supposed to sound, but there's not a lot of high in there, so you can play on top of it without interfering. And if you want to play on top of it as you're comping, you have an open B and an open E, which is the 6th of the G7, which makes it actually a 13. 6 and 13 are the same frequency. So, all right, so that's your G7. Then we go to a C9. I'm sure you've seen that before. Back to the G7, back to the C9, G7, and then at the end of that bar, this would be the 8th bar, we have an E7 augmented 9th. So it's just like E7 with this aug 9th here, and you can add some other colors to this. It's just kind of a turnaround chord. And another nice color is to add the C on top, that's a flat 13, or you can add the sharp 11 down here, or flat 5. But we'll just do this for now. All right, the G-A7 now is the beginning of the turnaround. This is bar 9. I do the same voicing that I did on the G7, only we move it up to A. Now we can add that open B and that open E again on this lower voicing. And on the A chord, the B is a 9th. E is just a 5th, but it makes it an A7 9 chord. And now we'll go the dominant of the blues, which is D7, the 5th degree. All right, I'm going to use this voicing rather than flattening out and doing the whole 9th thing. I'm going to use just the 3rd, 7th, and the tonic, and again leaving the B and the E string open, which is kind of cool. Yeah, that's a 13 and a 9 that you're adding, a 6 and a 9. And then the turnaround, which is the repeat of the last 4 chords. All right, there's all kinds of ways to color that. All right, let's get into the scales now. All right, easiest, simplest way is going to be just to play a minor pentatonic. So we have G minor pentatonic. I have written out all these scales just within a couple of positions down here because there's a lot of them that you can add to this later on. I will probably end up playing all over it, but right now you'll see it down here. Except for the pentatonics, I think I gave you all 5, and the same with the blues scale, the scale forms up and down the neck. All right, G minor pentatonic. You can use this all the way through. The great thing about a pentatonic is that it works on every one of these chords. One of those notes, and some of them are even really nice colored notes. For instance, like when you play the E7 augmented 9, this F is very nice on this E7. So it's built into the pentatonic. You can play just pentatonic all the way, and that's all. Then you just have to think about phrasing, think about your melody, and all of that. All right, the first way to alter a pentatonic in this blues form is to actually make it a blues scale. Pentatonic is a 5-note scale. The blues scale is actually a 6-note scale, or hexagonic, as opposed to pentatonic. So, and what it does is it adds a really interesting color. It adds the raised 4 So if we count up on a G scale, G, A, B, C, instead of a C natural, it raises that. So it adds the C sharp is what it does. So here's the blues scale in G. That's the note. All right, so you can play that blues scale as well all the way through without any alterations. Now we're going to start getting into the 7-note scales, making it a little bit more complicated. The first thing that I'd like you to acknowledge is that on the G chord, on your home chord here, which is it's a major chord, it's dominant 7th major chord, which in the chord is a B natural. Well, there is no B natural in the blues scale or in the pentatonic scale. So all of a sudden you're not playing that. So as soon as you play a B, which is a very positive thing to play on, if I wanted to, that is not part of the minor pentatonic or blues scale. So you've instantly morphed into either just a guide tone, what I call guide tones, which is the nuts and bolts of all chords, which are great for soloing. A guide tone, the easiest way to look at them on a guitar is the 4th string on a 6th-string chord. The 4th string is the 7th, and the 3rd string is the 3rd. Guide tones, 7th and the 3rd. Now, if you just lower these two and put the C on there, now it's a C7 or C9 that we're going to play down there. But the cool thing is that it's still the 7th and the 3rd, but they're inverted. So now you have the 3rd, 7th, back up to 7th, 3rd. And it works that way all the way. So you can play a solo just with guide tones, and it keeps it very inside, but you have no chance of losing the listener because they're the best chord tones of every chord, the 3rd and the 7th. It's the recipe for all chords start with that 3rd and 7th. The 3rd tells you whether it's major or minor. The 7th tells you whether it's dominant 7th or a major 7th. And that's basically it in a nutshell. Okay, so now let's move on to, we've got a possibility of a major 3rd in here with the 7th as we're doing our blues scale or minor pentatonic. So we have that's down there too. So will be all right. Another scale that we're going to study right now is just a simple dominant 7th scale. It's a G7 mixolydian. It's the 5th degree. The modal name for the 5th degree of a major scale is mixolydian. So here's your G7 mixolydian, which also has a major 3rd in it. It doesn't have a minor 3rd in it. Since that's the 5th degree of a major scale, let's count that back. I'll do the math for you. It's actually a C scale. C major scale starting from the 5th degree. So if we do that, that's from C. When you stop on G, then it's G7. It's not C anymore. All right, so that's G mixolydian. You have all 7 notes of the scale now. Now you have 3 different ways to approach it with the blues. Actually 4. The blues, just a simple guide tone line. We could do the G pentatonic for basic and the full mixolydian scale. And then that goes all the way through. C mixolydian. 5th degree of F major scale. So that's actually just an F major scale starting from the 5th degree. C mixolydian. All right, you can do the math on the other ones. We go back to G Mixolydian. All right, now for the E7 on this full 7-note chord, the first chord we're going to study right now is actually a Phrygian chord scale. And it's the 3rd degree of a major scale. So E7 is the 3rd degree of C. 1, 2, 3. All right, so if we play the C major scale starting on E, it's E Phrygian. And it's a dark sound. It has a lot of the very cool notes that would be in a very complicated E7 altered chord scale, which I'll play later. But the notes work very well. It's got everything except for the 3rd of the E, which is a very important chord. But when you're soloing it, it's not quite so important. But you can play it, and we will do that later. All right, so here's the E7 altered, and that's what you'll play over that. And I think I wrote it down here too. All right, so let's see. We've got E7. Now we're going to go to A7. A7 Mixolydian. Same concept. It's the 5th degree of something, which happens to be D. So. And back to D7. Then G7 Mixolydian. E Phrygian. A Mixolydian. D7 Mixolydian. All right, those are the simple full 7-note chords that you can take away with this. Let's go one step further, and let's talk about using a little bit of an altered chord. I've got these earphones in here. They're starting to pop out. All right. If you take a G7 Mixolydian scale and we alter the 5th degree, we flatten it a little bit. That's a sharp 11. And that's all you have to do, a Mixolydian scale with that sharp 11. So a Mixolydian scale has a flat 7 in it instead of a natural 7. That's just a Mixolydian scale. With that sharp 4, in modal terms, when you raise that 4, which is also the 11th degree, it's called Lydian. So a Mixolydian scale with this sharp 11 is called a Lydian flat 7 scale. Okay? It is actually derived from melodic minor, which I'm not going to get too much more into it. We'll stay with the modal terms for the major scale. So right now we're just going to be playing this Mixolydian scale with a flat sharp 11 or flat 5. It's all the same note. So let me, here's the regular. And here's with the sharp 11. Adds a really nice tone on all of them. They have, I've written down all these positions, all the scales, so you'll just have to go through them. Same C7, sharp 11, back to G7. Now on the E7 chord, what we can do is, since the Phrygian doesn't include the G sharp, which is an important chord tone, we can actually play that G sharp on the chord scale, and what it does is it makes what we call a Phrygian major. So I like to just think of it as playing a Phrygian chord scale and adding that G sharp. Then it gives you the both of best worlds. So actually when you do the true Phrygian major scale, it's actually derived. What I just played is derived from a harmonic minor scale, which is a lot of fun. Next time for that one. All right, so let's move on back to the A7 after that, and D7. All these were just sharpening that the 4th or the 11th degree. So they're all Lydian flat 7. Except for that E7 augmented ninth, which becomes a Phrygian major. and we add that G sharp to the Phrygian chord scale. Okay? All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to come back and lay down a loop, and we'll take it that far. Okay? All right, I'll see you in a minute.